So one of the things I really do look forward to working on is the timeline system. And what it'll essentially do is offer a generalized system to sequence anything, like pretty much anything in Resonite. It's gonna be built around the same core primitives that you already can access with Inspector, that you can access with Protoflags. And I think that's going to make it a really powerful mechanism that's just going to integrate really, really well with lots of different systems and open lots of new possibilities. And the way it's going to work, in general, let me make sure I'm kind of on the camera, is you'll be able to create a timeline. Ooh, let me actually unplug my headset because I'm kind of getting caught in the cable. So I'm just going to draw a timeline. So say you create a timeline, and it's going to be this object. It's going to have a start. It's going to be some marks. And what you can think of as timeline is just a general, it's concept. You have you have points in time, and you can put things to happen or sync, with a point in time, and then you can play it back. So for example, say you have you have your play cursor here, and you can play it, and as it plays, it kind of goes through timeline, and you can seek and move around, and that gives you information where you essentially have this is the current time, and this is the current speed of playback, and that can be fed into lots of other systems. The other system's also gonna say I'm at this point in the timeline, for example, you're gonna have a thing, and it's gonna be here, and this is gonna be whatever this is. It's gonna be active, when the time cursor's here. And then you're gonna have a position within this, that's depending on where the cursor is relative to this item, wherever it is on timeline. And the real power will be that this can be anything. To give you an example, say you want to animate, some colors in the world. This can be like a gradient. So you put a gradient on the timeline, and then you have so you have an item in the world, and you have you have a drive for its color. I'm kind of driving it wrong. And say you have another node, so you can, or module, there's gonna be probably multiple mechanisms, but let's think of it as a node. So you have a gradient. This is some kind of color. I'm gonna just do whatever. Imagine there's more colors than this than yellow. You plop this on the timeline, and then you have thing which actually feeds this, and gives you whatever color is at the current playback. And then you're gonna drive a color, of something. And then you can, for example, say, I wanna drive a size of something, or so you're gonna have another thing, and says the size is 1 here, and it's gonna be 2 over here. And then you're gonna feed this to another thing. So, you get the size, you feed it, you drive it, and as the timer kind of goes, it's gonna change, whatever values you get for here, and you can map that to size. And either, there's gonna be component which maps it directly. So you don't need to drive it specifically, just say drive this part. Or you can sample it with protofiles. You can do extra stuff. Oh, I didn't expect that to happen. But you can sample it and do whatever extra stuff you will, whatever processing, whatever mechanisms you want to do. So this is one of those things you'll be able to do. If it kind of works, you can undo things like this. Here we go. This can also be, for example, audio. So you can put an audio here. Audio, and maybe you can overlap multiple of them. And then you're gonna have something where you have on audio output. I'm just gonna represent it with this speaker. And you're gonna have a module which feeds it blends these audio sources together, and and feeds it into your audio output. So it's gonna play and blend whatever audio you have there. So if you want audio to happen in synchronization with some value changes, you'll be able to do that. You can place it on the same timeline, so you can have audio clips. One of the things you'll also be able to is if you have this, is, it can be like just an output in the world. Maybe, it's like you're making like a virtual experience. You don't want sounds to happen a particle times, but also you could just use this for audio compositing. So we could have tools where if you have a timeline with audio clips on it, you're gonna say, I want to render this out into a single audio clip, and you essentially bake it, and it's gonna render out a new audio clip that's, literally whatever this is. So you could essentially use Resonite for audio editing. Because with those clips, you'll be also able to, like, the more powerful the modules that go on the timeline, the more you'll be able to do with them. So you could, for example, say, this can be different sizes, I want to stretch this audio effect, or maybe I want to, like, cut it. So it's only part of the audio effect. So you could use the timeline not to drive something in the world, but use it as a workflow tool to, do audio editing. And, bake audio, and you can then export this, use it even outside of Resonite, or use it within Resonite. The main goal is, like, make the tool as powerful as it can be, and as versatile as it can be. The other things, with the timeline system, it's probably the idea is like whatever can be like time-based, you can place it on the timeline, and you can use it to drive whatever things you want. The another thing you could place on the timeline is actually, let me back up a little bit. I'm gonna mention another thing with the audio thing, because you might have multiple audios, but also you're gonna say this track is this track goes to this, and maybe you have another speaker here in the world, and you're gonna say this track goes to this. So when this whole timeline plays, when it gets to this point, it's gonna play sound out of this one, and once it gets to this point, it's gonna play this sound out of this one. So you can use it, to synchronize multiple sources as well. And again, you might have, not just audio clips, but also video clips. Maybe you want to, synchronize video there. And once we have, like, better video decoding, maybe you'll be able to, like, composite video, like, so you can use it for video editing. It's probably gonna be further down the line because it requires better, like, video kind of support, but it's, by making the timeline a very generic construct, it'll open those possibilities. The more functionality comes into Resonite itself and into Froox engine itself, the more it'll kind of resonate with the timeline, and the more things you'll be able to do with timeline. These things on the timeline, they can also be animations. So, for example, say you have, like, you have a whole rig. So you have, like, a rig here, this thing, and then you have, like, mocap animation, and this is already kind of like animation within itself, and you're gonna say, at this point, this is gonna drive this thing. So, you can place animations there, like, they're kind of baked animations. And what I think is gonna be even more powerful is you'll be able to, like, take a whole timeline, which has a bunch of stuff, and say, this whole timeline is its own thing that's kind of, like, baked. It has, like, some outputs. So, like, I have, like, a timeline, that has a bunch of stuff. I'm gonna put this timeline into another timeline, and then, maybe I'll repeat it, and do other things with it, or maybe I put, like, just part of it, and then, like, use it to, drive other stuff. So you'll be able to, like, nest the timelines, and do, like, lots of stuff that way. The other thing that's also going to be powerful with timelines are sort of events. So you could, for example, say, I'm going to put an event at this point, and say you have like a perplex, and this event is going to send an impulse. So, like, once the cursor reaches here, it's going to send an impulse, and it's going to trigger whatever you want. So you can, for example, I don't know, trigger particle effect to happen, or whatever mechanism you want. The whole timeline, it's not going to be tied into any specific, system. It's going to be a general construct, and the goal is to make it, like, so it kind of integrates naturally with lots of systems in Resonite. Anything where you want something to change on time. The other example is, once we, for example, have the audio DSP, you could have like a system, say, for example, a node that's like, accepting a bunch of inputs, and it's like, it's doing some kind of signal thing. You could have a timeline where we have like, sequence of, values, and maybe like within those, if you open this up, this could be like a curve or something, maybe it's like, and it's like, Bezier. Maybe there's one here, like, so this is here, and then like you have like a bunch of more modules here that you place, and you do stuff, and then like there's another one here, another one here, and you're gonna say this plugs here, this plugs here, this plugs here, and as the audio DSP is like, generating audio, is actually sampling the timeline for the inputs, so you can use it as a sequencer for making music or making sound effects. The goal is to have the system be super versatile, be able to plug pretty much into anything, the way, ProtoFlux plugs into anything, the way inspectors plug into anything. The timeline is going to be, very similar. Anytime you have a value that you want, change over time, you can sequence it on the timeline and then, wire it into whatever you need to do. And create like, lots of kind of complex behavior. So I think once we have this mechanism, it'll open up like lots of really cool things. Like you could, for example, make an entire world, there's like music synchronization, and what do? You just undo all of this. Could really use the clear button. Oop. Oh, I don't have enough undo steps, so no, I'll have to do this manually. Let me get rid of this, and rid of this. So say like, you just plop an audio track, and you have audio here, and then like, you sequence whatever you want to happen, whatever stuff you want to drive, you just, sequence it with it using the timeline and plop whatever things, and now it's going to be perfectly synchronized, with your music. Or maybe instead of music, this is a video, and you use this, to make meta memes. So you just say we want this thing to activate, or we want this thing to change, just sequence it. It's gonna make stuff like that like way easier to do. Like I mentioned earlier, it's gonna open up new possibilities, like you can use it as a workflow tool. Do audio editing, clip the audio clips, arrange them, blend them, and then like, render it into a new audio clip. Stuff like that. The goal is like, like as ever, everything within Resonite is make it as generic as possible. So like, it both integrates with systems, and lots of other systems can like, build upon it. So that's one of the things I really kind of want to work on at some point too, because I think it's just gonna explode, lots of things you want to do with Resonite. There's another, I was gonna mention, I was gonna mention something that kind of slipped my mind right now. But yeah, this is I think this is gonna be really powerful. Oh, I remember. One of the things I would like to see, like once this is in, that I would like to come in is like, when people actually make, they used to make like, these kind of like stop motion things. So like, say, we can build tooling to also help, work with the timeline. So you don't have to just, work with the timeline manually sequencing things, but say you have like, an avatar in the world, so like a stick figure, and there used to be like stick figure animations. So you can have tooling which says, put the current state, like I'm here on the timeline right now, put the state here, and it's gonna, it's gonna make a keyframe, and then you're gonna move it here, and you're gonna like move this, I didn't make it enough, but like, imagine his hand moved, put a keyframe here, and you just kind of like do animation step by step, and then you can, play it back. So we can make tools that let you, do stuff in the world and then capture the state into the timeline. So you literally make the changes you want to happen and then make keyframes. And one thing I would love to see is like, people making sort of like these stop motion animations, like, like the stick figure ones, but now in VR, with avatars and everything. So like, and that's one of the reasons I really want to work on this, because I think like, that can be a lot of fun for a lot of people and can like make a Resonite into not just like, a social platform, but something people use, something that people use to make cool content that exists outside of Resonite. So that's I've kind of used your question for another thing I really wanted to talk about, because this is one of the big things I really look forward to like implementing at some point, because I think it's gonna be big for Resonite.